you can actually train a person to improve, but if you do not change their mindset, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But when you focus on their mindset, things will happen at an accelerated rate.
Hello? Is that you, family? It looks like you. All I gotta say is, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. As you always know, we are here to raise the Djed. Welcome to the Djedi Learning Show. This is your host, Bobikin2, where we resurrect communities through superior education. Like always, we have a tremendous show for you today. Featured in this show, we'll be discussing a little bit of Facebook and how it can mess with your emotions. We'll also be talking about Black college student success, especially as it relates to basketball. We'll get into that one. And lastly, I'm going to do a combo. I didn't want to continue this, but since it's already wrapped up, we're definitely going to do a recap on Elizabeth Thomas and Ted Cummins. Ted Cummins was the teacher who took Elizabeth Thomas, who was a student, and they went on a run. I'll just leave it at that until we get there. But I also want to go over some additional information regarding the hacks to a lot of these educational websites and how it may affect you. Because it's not just the places that we see usually getting hacked, such as the Targets and the Visas and Nissans, things of that nature. This hits home because probably a significant portion of your children had to deal with this attack. But we'll touch on the mortar board today and the significance of that. Well, that's the occult side of education. You go through a process of initiation called a graduation. At that graduation, you have certain regalia or a costume that you wear. One of those things that you wear is called a mortar board, and we'll get into that. You may refer to it as your cap from the cap and gown, but the mortar board is much, much deeper than you would possibly think. So we'll get into that. Our main theme, though, is the theme of meditation. And just like Batin said on Fantastic Volume 2, meditation eases the mind. It brings the youth. So we'll touch on some of the significant changes to the body, to the soul, and to the mind that meditation has. We'll also get into some cosmicness. This one you're going to want to stay around for because they don't build them like this all the time. So definitely stay tuned for this one. And last but not least, we have a wonderful interview with the brother Ray Wilson. He has written numerous books. One of his latest books is Kelsey's Guide to Africa, which is a historical coloring book in which children can color and learn about various African cultures. So we're going to have him on. But it doesn't stop there with his talents. He's also a neuro-linguistic programmer, which means that he understands the power of words and how to use them to reprogram the mind, which in result can reprogram the body. He's also a life coach, so he'll get into a lot of information regarding being the best you can be. And we'll talk on a range of other topics, so I know you'll enjoy that. Ray Wilson he's absolutely brilliant, has a lot of stories to share with everybody, and the information that he has, we need. So put your seatbelt on, strap yourself in. No, this ain't Magic Mountain, so you won't be falling out the roller coaster here. We got you. Just make sure you're ready for the ride you're about to go on. I hope you're full. As a matter of fact, I hope you're hungry. Because if you're hungry, I got just the food that you need. So stay tuned, because here we go with this news. But before we do so, we want to make sure that you can contact us. So you can go to our website, JediLearning.com. That's the best way to contact us. DJEDILEARNING.com. You can call us 909-576-0170. Email us at babakentu@JediLearning.com. BABAKENTU@JediLearning.com. Go to our Facebook. You can see us there at Djedi Learning. Okay, that's our friend page, but we also have a like page, which is Djedi Institute of Learning. There you get the constant feeds, constant articles, constant updates on any events that we're having, any information that we discuss on the show. You can pick it up there. Also, we have our Twitter page at Djedi Learning. Same thing at Instagram at Djedi Learning. And lastly, visit our YouTube channel, which contains right now all of our podcasts, as well as some other informational videos that allow you to educe or to draw out the natural genius inside of the children that you come in contact with on a daily basis. So YouTube at Djedi, first name, last name is Learning. And now, so we can reallocate and reorient ourselves spatially, according to the cosmos, we are continuing to be in the age of Aquarius. The season is currently summer, and the sun sign that's up is now Gemini. We have now crossed over from Taurus into Gemini. So we're talking about multiple personality disorder. I'm just kidding. But now we have a better idea of what to expect from this time frame. Like I said, I'm Baba Kentu, and it's time to get into this news.
And now that it's a wrap, I hate to break that news to you. And now that it's a wrap, I hate to break that news to you. I'm so sorry that I had to break that news to you. I'm so sorry that.
So the first article we discussing today is college hoops, and black student success. Why March can be so maddening. College hoops and black student success. Why March can be so maddening. You can find this at The Education Trust, written by Andrew Nichols, and it was written on March 31st, 2017, during the heart of March Madness. So I found this article to be extremely well written. I'm going to give it 7 Djed pillars. That's the max you can get. But it hits on some points that are extremely pertinent, not only to me, but to the community at large. So let's get into it. He starts off by saying, I've always loved college basketball, particularly March Madness. But if I'm being completely honest, my inner educational racial justice advocate often finds the madness, well, quite maddening. For starters, it is entirely too hard to ignore the obvious. Black student athletes are insanely overrepresented among the ballers on the hardwood. I talk to my students about this all the time. Just look at the games, look at the players, then look at the coaches and the owners and see what that reminds you of. But I'm going to continue. If you didn't know any better, you might think most of the teams in the tournament were historically black colleges and universities. I second that emotion. But the truth is that many of these campuses enroll far too few black students who aren't athletes. Now, here we go. This is when the heat gets turned up. For example, we're going to talk about Gonzaga. And I'm going to give you a little background really quick. What this author, Andrew Nichols, is going to do is going to take only the teams that are in or that were in the final brackets, okay, the 64 team tournament to play for the NCAA basketball championship, men's basketball championship. So Gonzaga is one of the teams, and he takes them for example. He says, why can't Gonzaga recruit black undergraduates from the same places that recruited the black basketball players, such as Los Angeles, Memphis, Tennessee, San Antonio, Chicago, or Toyoma, Japan? This is about institutional priorities and money, because it seems implausible that Gonzaga can scour the earth in search of the next Michael Jordan, but can't piece together a student body that is more than 1% black. And frankly, UCLA and the University of Oregon aren't much better, with roughly 2.5% and 2% of their undergraduates identifying as black. All these students, and you only get 2%. And a lot of people are out there screaming and hollering about how much better we've been doing over these last 8 years, and how all of a sudden it's going to come tumbling down because of the big white shadow. I got news for you. 2.5% and 2% ain't doing good in the first place. But I'm going to continue. Access to exclusive institutions, which tend to have higher completion rates and more resources to spend on students, is one of the lesser discussed contributors to the 22 percentage point difference between black and white college graduation rates nationwide. 41% to 63%, respectively. Okay. They go on to say here, the other maddening thing about the madness concerns graduation rates for black students. Each year I find it increasingly difficult to celebrate the on-the-court success of black student athletes while knowing that many of the institutions these players represent aren't as invested in their off-the-court success. Teach. That's all I can say is teach. He goes on to say, year after year, black male athletes graduate at lower rates than white male peers. But at too many institutions, there are also large gaps between black and white students who aren't athletes. Okay. So their research shows that the average gap in graduation rates at four-year public and private institutions is an alarming 13.5 percentage points, with gaps exceeding 20 points at more than 1 in 4 institutions. That's 25%. That's if you had $1, a quarter of it. Okay. A quarter of them exceed 20 percentage points, okay, a gap between black graduating students and white graduating students. But now is not the time for your tears. So they decided to do a different type of bracketology. For the teams that made the 2017 tournament, they identified the winners and losers based on the record of graduating black students. Only 59 of the 64 teams were included because, watch this, Gonzaga, South Dakota State, Bucknell, University of Vermont, Texas Southern didn't have enough black or white students to meet the graduation rate cohort limit of 30. Below we list our Final Four, Elite 8, and Sweet 16, along with our failing 4, Egregious 8, and Sad 16. And the criteria we use to identify them. Now, here's the criteria that they used. Okay. Each of the following components contribute to 1/4 of the total score for each university. Number 1, the graduation rate for black students. Number 2, how that graduation rate compares with similar types of colleges. Number 3, the gap in graduation rates for black and white students. Damn, I could barely graduate with grammar with the way I'm reading today. But anyway. Number 4, access for black students on campus. Okay, so I'm just going to give you guys the top 5 because we got 16 on the top 16 teams and we got 16 on the bottom 16. So the top 5, according to those criteria we just gave, are Winthrop graduates 98% of their black students, or they got a 98 score at least. You got Duke coming number 2. Virginia Commonwealth coming in number 3. You have Princeton, a surprising Princeton, coming in at number 4. And then Florida State to round out the starting 5. In my area, you also have USC, number 8. And number 15, UCLA. So this is the top 16 teams, according to the data we just discussed. Some other notables are Stanford, Florida, Northwestern, Maryland, Vanderbilt, Notre Dame, just to name a few. But the bottom 16, these are the horrid of the horrid. Number 1, with a 2. Okay, out of 100, they got a 2. Kansas State. Now, take a look. I'm not sure if he's still there, but their previous coach, Frank Martin, just take a look at him and how he interacts with those players. And you tell me if this relationship isn't a little strange to you. Anyway, number 2, Missouri State. Number 3, North Dakota State. Number 4, Eastern Tennessee State. And number 5, Cincinnati to round out the starting 5. But you also got some notables there. Purdue, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Michigan State, Minnesota, and Marquette. Those are the worst of the worst. So if you're thinking about signing a letter of intent to play with any of those schools, you might want to bring your eraser with you, or maybe even your whiteout, because you just might want to get out. So that's college hoops and black student success. Why March can be so maddening. Definitely check that article out. Of course, we'll put the links to it up in the show notes so you can reach it with ease. The second story we want to touch on here is we just want to do a little quick recap of this story because it sums all up now. Well, honestly, the story is continuing to go on and it will be going on for quite some time. But what I want to discuss right now is the title, How Authorities Found Missing Tennessee Student Elizabeth Thomas and Former Teacher Tad Cummins. Okay. I printed this out on 4/21/17 at 6:12, but it doesn't say when this was written. It was written by Julia Jacobo, at least that's the person's name, and it looks like this comes from ABC News. ABC News. So, the missing Tennessee teen who was allegedly kidnapped by her former teacher was found in an isolated cabin in Northern California after authorities received a tip late Wednesday describing a possible sighting of the pair. Okay. The caller indicated that 15-year-old Elizabeth Thomas and her former teacher, 50-year-old Tad Cummins, may have been living in the cabin for a week and a half, Devine said. Apparently there was a rat where they were because that's how they got found, apparently, even though they had all of this electronic data and photographs and pictures of their sightings at Walmarts and different places here and there. It says, after that person gave their call, law enforcement then established a perimeter around the cabin and decided to wait until the morning to arrest Cummins as he exited the cabin. According to the sheriff's office, a citizen who had befriended the pair assisted the police on the scene. And I wish you guys could see this guy. Just go Google or YouTube eyewitness helps to capture Tad Cummins. And look at this guy. Not to be judgmental, but I'm surprised he didn't try to take part in the shenanigans where they lived and, where he was going. It looked like a pretty rural area and it looked quite interesting. But anyway, Cummins faces charges in Siskiyou County for kidnapping and possession of stolen property, according to the sheriff's office. The charges are pending review by Siskiyou County District Attorney Kirk Andrus. In Lawrence County, Tennessee, Cummins faces charges of aggravated kidnapping and sexual contact with the minor, said Attorney General Brent Cooper. To kind of wrap it up here, Elizabeth was described by authorities to be healthy and unharmed, but they added that the main concern is the state of her emotional and mental well-being. She will be flown back to Tennessee Friday morning on a TBI aircraft. Authorities accredited citizens and the media for their involvement in helping to locate the teen. Investigators received more than 1,500 tips regarding the whereabouts of the pair, according to FBI. It only takes one tip, Gwen said. This is yet another example of the value of the public helping us to rescue a kidnapping victim. So I'm glad the little girl's all right. And I'm glad they finally brought this stage of this story to a close. But it just goes to show you that the relationships between the teachers and the students on a lot of campuses, the lines are beginning to get blurred. Not if they haven't already been blurred. But I need to highlight this to people if they think that just because they have to go all day to a job that they need to send their children to the biggest babysitter in the world called the public school system. If this is going to be the result of your babysitter, why would you want to send them there? Maybe we need to restructure how we look at our lives in order to restructure how we're going to educate our children. But that's that. I don't want to spend too much time on that because now that is the past. But I do want to bring your attention to an article I've come across. And it says 77 million Edmodo users are hacked as widespread cyber attacks hit the edtech world. We constantly have to discuss social engineering media on this show because it is so prevalent these days because people can't seem to let it go. We can easily detach and just get off of it. But the psychological and behavioral programming that goes on in the development of these apps makes it almost impossible for the person who doesn't have any information to let it go. But this is the result of depending too much on digital media. Take a listen to this. This article is from The 74. The 74. Written by Marisa Nicosia, and it looks like it was written on wow, they don't want to give me a date here, but as soon as I find it, I'll let the family know. So it starts off here. 77 million Edmodo user accounts, including email addresses, usernames, and hashed passwords, according to the EdTech publication EdSurge, were stolen by a hacker. Motherboard, a tech and science publication owned by Vice, it reported that the hacker put up the data for sale on the dark web marketplace called Hansa for $1,000. Timeout. Your children's passwords, email addresses, usernames, user accounts give you access to all types of information. It was so easy and so effortless by this hacker, they only charged $1,000 for it. Now, I don't know if they were charging $1,000 per user account or for the whole 77 million download. Either way, $1,000 doesn't seem a lot to me to be ransoming off that type of information. But anyway, it goes on to say, it's unclear whether or to what extent the attack was related to the global cyber attack in early May that has since affected 200,000 computers in 150 countries. By the way, family, that particular software or malware was developed by the NSA, in case you didn't know. But we're going to continue. Deploying ransomware that locks down all files and extorts money in exchange for the release of the files. And victims included FedEx and Nissan. They continue. The San Mateo, California-based Edmodo was founded in 2008 and is primarily a social network for teachers to connect and share lesson plans with their counterparts across the country or around the world. Basically, teacher Facebook is what it is. It also functions as a homework and grade tracking system to help parents stay engaged in their children's school lives. And that part is good. I also agree 100% with being involved in your children's education. But you can't substitute digital involvement for real involvement. Unless you go whoop some digital ass too. But that's a whole nother story. So last, it wraps up by saying, I received an email from Edmodo early Wednesday morning alerting me to the breach and recommending that I update my password. The company said it promptly hired security experts to investigate and report the incident to authorities. But the email appears to be the first official communication from the company to its users since the attack was publicly reported about a week ago. Okay? Now, this is the kicker, because this isn't the first time that your children's information has been leaked. It says the incident is the second large-scale data breach of an educational tech company reported this year, according to EdSurge. In April, just a month ago, a security researcher found that Schoolzilla, which offers data warehousing services and tools to school districts, had been backing up personally identifiable student data to a publicly accessible location. And what happened? Because of a flaw in its configuration settings, some 1.3 million students may have been exposed. So when you see that new credit card showing up at your door, or the application for a new social security card, or you all of a sudden get some stuff from Amazon that you never thought you ordered straight to your doorstep, maybe it was one of these data breaches. When you can't log into your email address, when money starts coming missing up out of your account, you may want to point to this. Just some words of wisdom. But anyway, that was the article entitled 77 million Edmodo users are hacked as widespread cyber attacks hit the ed tech world. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for. Here we go. From the Harvard Business Review, we have a new article coming out written on April 10th, 2017 by Holly Shakia and Nicholas Christakis, entitled, A New, More Rigorous Study Confirms the more you use Facebook, the worse you feel. The worse you feel, not the better you feel, the worse you feel. Yeah, you know what, I don't want to get too energetic on this subject, but I'm just going to read the document and then we'll do our ad-libs after that. It starts off by saying, the average Facebook user spends almost an hour on the site every day, according to data provided by the company last year. A Deloitte survey found that for many smartphone users, checking social media apps are the first thing they do in the morning. Remember we talked about having your cup of Facebook in the morning as opposed to your cup of coffee? Well, here you have it. Often before even getting out of bed. So let's continue. Not going to pontificate yet. They go on to say, prior research has shown that the use of social media may detract from face-to-face relationships, reduce investment in meaningful activities, and increase sedentary behavior by encouraging more screen time. It leads to internet addiction and erodes self-esteem through unfavorable social comparisons. Now, this is the part that people aren't really understanding yet. That unfavorable social comparison. So let's get into it. Self-comparison can be a strong influence on human behavior. And because people tend to display the most positive aspects of their lives on social media, it is possible for an individual to believe that their own life compares negatively to what they see presented by others. Moreover, other studies have found that social media use has a positive impact on well-being through increased social support and reinforcement of real-world relationships. So we got a little bit of a balance. But once we get into this article, we'll see that the scales is tipped to one side. Overall, our results showed that while real-world social networks were positively associated with overall well-being, the use of Facebook was negatively associated with overall well-being. They found consistently that both liking others' content, just that simple like button, And clicking links significantly predicted a subsequent reduction in self-reported physical health, mental health, and life satisfaction just by clicking on the button and clicking on certain links. If you like something or if you're linking something, it's destroying your health, mental health, and life satisfaction. Okay, just remember that. If I'm liking something or linking something, it's destroying my mind, body, and soul. Body and soul, oh, it's being destroyed by Facebook, baby. I should get Anita Baker to sing that. If she got on Facebook, her name would probably be Anita Faker. But that's for another episode. Although we can show that Facebook use seems to lead to diminished well-being, we cannot definitively say how that occurs. Okay, so they know it's happening, but they haven't broke down the mechanisms yet. They go on to talk about, we did not see much difference between the three types of activity we measured: liking, posting, and clicking links. Okay. Then they go on to try to expand the results to other forms of social media. So they say, these results then may be relevant for other forms of social media. While many platforms expose the user to the sort of polished profiles of others that can lead to negative self-comparison, the issue of quantity of usage will be an issue for any social media platform. While screen time in general can be problematic, the tricky thing about social media is that while we're using it, we get the impression that we are engaging in meaningful social interaction. Our results suggest that the nature and quality of this sort of connection is no substitute for the real-world interaction we need for a healthy life. Unplug from the matrix. The full story when it comes to online social media use is surely complex. Exposure to the carefully curated images from others' lives leads to negative self-comparison, and the sheer quantity of social media interaction may detract from more meaningful real-life experiences. And they sum it up very nicely here. What seems quite clear, however, is that online social interactions are no substitute for the real thing. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Ain't nothing like the real thing. You remember that. Even if it takes my horrible singing to get you to remember it. Don't forget. So once again, that was from two researchers. One assistant professor of global public health at UC San Diego, that's Holly Shakia. And the other one directs Human Nature Lab at Yale University, Nicholas Christakis. So they're just letting you know what they get from their research. But, we always have to bring a little bit of that into the fold. But now we're going to change course. And before we get into our next segment, I definitely want to let some of the family and the users know we got your messages. To those of you out there on Facebook, liking the post, sharing them. Those of you out there on Instagram, doing the same. We haven't got as much love on Twitter yet, but for those first two, we definitely appreciate the love. And make sure you keep sharing this information because we need to get the information out to our people ourselves. As you can see, we have nothing but fake news going on, and the only thing that you can get that's real is from people that you trust. So, be that as it may, we also need to understand that we always have to give preference to the people who continue to support. So we want to give a shout out, especially to brother Enoch Hankerson, who left a comment, and this is one of the ways you can support the show, on one of our previous shows on the YouTube page, to which we currently have 11 subscribers. And when we started this, we had none. Not like we're killing the game, but we are getting more people involved in the message and the movement, because it's a movement. And Enoch says, thank you. We need more Jedi learning like this. Hotep. That's right, Brother Enoch, and we hope, and actually we will be bringing you more Jedi learning just like this. So big shout out to Brother Enoch. Keep listening. We definitely got your best interest at hand, and make sure you keep doing exactly what it is that you're doing. Okay, supporting natural media like this. We're not going to call this fake news. We're going to call this natural media, because just naturally people spread things by word of mouth. So you heard it here. We done coined a new term. Before they steal it from us, or attempt to at least, make sure you replay it a couple of times and get it into your psyche that you heard it on the Jedi Learning Show first. Natural media. Natural media. Now, if you're into mysteries or anything hidden, you know you're going to like the upcoming segment, because it's all about, you got it, the occult side of education.
Hey, it's well hidden, it don't show. Expose a couple secrets for those who don't know. Can you open eyes so that they can grow? That depends on how deep you want to go. It's no kidding, it's no joke. Is it real? I had to take a poke. Can you open eyes so that they can grow? It gets so deep, I'm not really for sure.
Now, in today's show, we are going to discuss the mortar board. Now, the mortar board stems from that hat that you wear into your rites of passage that's called a graduation. Some people call it gradual initiation or gradual indoctrination. But either way it goes, what is the symbology of this interesting looking hat that I have to wear on my head? And I have information coming from nationally standardized academic tests that students used when they're assessed to see where their skills fall, as well as a couple of articles I was able to pull up. So I'm going to go straight into the information and figure out, why do we wear these hats? And you will be probably pleasantly surprised. If you know the theme by now, it all comes from ancient African symbology. But let's see exactly where. So the first article we have here is from a website. Looks like it's entitled Yohi Vahi Yahweh Yahweh Kippah. I know that's a lot of Hebrew going on, but maybe you can find it under something else. And let me see if I can find another name for you here. Fossilizedcustoms.com. Fossilizedcustoms.com. That is the website. I can't find an article here, but maybe whoever owns the article or the website wrote this particular piece. And what we got here is a couple of paragraphs that I think is quite interesting. So at first, it says, quote, "As odd as it may seem, the domed beanie hat seen on popes, cardinals, Orthodox rabbis, and some Oriental folks is derived from the Greek hat of Hermes, the Greek deity of the mind. Commerce, fortune, gymnastics, cunning, wisdom, and shrewdness were celebrated in his honor. Hermes is really big with the Masons. To them, he's the god of wisdom, also known as Thought, Jehudi, or Set. You've seen adaptations of this hat worn by graduates and their professors, but slightly disguised beneath the square mortar board, another weird custom inherited from the guilds, sort of union-run schools of the Middle Ages." Now, let's just jump in here real quick and break some of that down. We talked about the domed beanie hats on popes, okay, and rabbis and things of this nature. But the first time you actually see skull caps being worn is in ancient Africa. Look up Ptah, Ptah, the ancient deity of masonry, of building, of architecture. He was the first to put the words into the mouth of the Logos, who would then speak creation. He was the mound that rose first out of those primeval waters, those primordial waters. So he represents building because he was the first mound, also represented by Pangea. He has a skull cap on. But it gets even deeper than that. Here you may read, or we have just read, that Hermes is really big with the Masons. But who is Hermes? Hermes is the Greek derivative of, they said it here as well, thought. The whole word thought comes from an ancient African deity. Thought, before he was known as Thought, or Hermes, was known as Djedi. Djedi is the ancient African deity of wisdom, writing, speaking, science, mathematics, art. All that is which to be made beautiful. Djedi was the master of. Especially the Hekau, are the words of power, today known as magic. So, you have Ptah wearing his skull cap. You have Djedi, which it represents, at least in later ages in the Greek times. They go ahead and assign Djedi to, they wear the skull cap in honor of Djedi, I should say. But I'm going to continue reading this article. It says, doctor is Latin for teacher. They taught building techniques and architecture and were students of masonry, which relates to the mortarboard hat over the domed beanie. So now we've added the mortarboard on top of it. That's the flat, stiff part. The skull cap part is the part that covers the crown chakra and protects it. You also see in Muslim communities that they wear the kufi, or the crown, to cover that crown chakra, to protect it, because the crown chakra is the highest level of the chakra system, or of enlightenment. It also represents your Djed pillar being completely erected. Now we have the mortarboard, which goes on top of it. We know that the Masons received tons of their information from the teachings of the ancient Africans, if not all of it, especially in the form of building. For them to then use that to put on top of the head to represent their building and to represent their enlightenment in reaching the highest form of education and self-knowledge and knowledge of self, speaks volumes to how much respect they had for the ancient African knowledge, even if they didn't know where it was coming from. But let's continue. Like we said, it says they taught building techniques and architecture and were students of masonry, which relates to the mortarboard hat over the domed beanie. These guys were real masons. Then it goes on to say, when you research the origin of a little hat called a fez, you'll see it's linked to all this information. 33rd degree Masons, also known as adepts or Illuminati, are fond of wearing a big red fez with a tassel on it. Let's just get into the fez really quick. Look up the term red crown of Lower Kemet. What you will see is a red crown which is circular in shape, which also has a sometimes flat top of the dome. This was only worn by the Naisuts or the kings up in northern Africa, as opposed to the white crown, which was worn by the kings or the Naisuts in lower Africa, in southern Africa. But when you united the two lands, as which happened in Egypt, you wore the red and the white crown, so you put them together. But when we talk about the fez, we are talking about the red crown coming out of ancient Africa. When the Arabs come through and get all the information that they get from Egypt, they also begin to wear the fez. As you can see now, a lot of Moors wear a fez. You can see a yarmulke in Jewish communities. You can see everybody has their cap, their skull cap that protects the crown chakra. But now you understand the significance and the history of where these practices come from. And without any further ado, I want to go into one more little article. that discusses this in a little bit more detail. It says, those funny hats are called mortar boards because they resemble a tool used by bricklayers to hold mortar. In some areas, they're also called square academic caps or Oxford caps. The mortar board consists of a flat square board attached to a skull cap with a tassel button to the center. Okay. The Moors will tell you that that button represents the belly button. Okay. To be born into this world. That's when you're really born. When you have self-knowledge and reach enlightenment. But scholars believe the mortar board is based on the biretta, a similar hat worn by Roman Catholic clergy. The biretta was commonly worn in the 14th and 15th centuries by students and artists. Now we know 14th and 15th centuries is 4,000 and 5,000 years removed from Ptah and Jehudi and the red crowns of Lower Kemet or Egypt. But I say all this to hit home the point that a lot of what you're doing in your educational system is already yours. What you need to do is reclaim it. Identify the science. Use that science. And it will help you to erect your jet pillar. Reach enlightenment. Because the only true knowledge is knowledge of self. It is time for our theme of the day. Meditation eases the mind and brings the youth.
Oh, yes.
Meditation. I've been asked recently by a number of classroom teachers, since this is the end of the school semester or the school year, to come in and do guided meditations with their students because they're stressed out about prom, they're stressed out about finals, they're stressed out about sports, they're stressed out about who likes them, about video games, about chess, about everything. So, who do they call? Baba Kintu. Baba Kintu, we don't really want to be bothered with you until it's time for you to fix some problems with our children. And that I have no problem doing. I have no problem whatsoever. So, meditation. Why is it so key? Why is everybody talking about it again? There's a period of time where meditation had kind of went out of style. But with such an ancient practice, once again, dating back to our earliest ancestors, you can go into Kemetic yoga or African yoga to look at the different meditation practices, and even on some of the temple walls you can see that some of the positions that they held while they were doing their breathing exercises. In the later periods of ancient Egypt, you get a book called the Book of Respirations, which is in breathing techniques, and it talks about how important the breath is. But I just want to give you a couple of documents to look at when identifying why meditation is so important. So, by doing a guided meditation, I made sure that students understood the benefits and the powers that they possess when engaging in such an act. We discuss focus or attention. We discuss memory. We discuss breathing and how breathing can cure a significant amount of ailments, especially as it relates to mood. And we also talk about the imagination. What is the difference between what's real, what's fake? How does your brain tell the difference? And how you can kick the brain into hyperdrive. How can you kick the brain into hyperdrive? So, let me get those documents out for you and we'll discuss it. The first article from Dr. David Hamilton, he discusses the difference between reality and imagination. And this is what he has to say on the subject. He says, it's pretty obvious when you think about it. The stress response evolved in humans to give us the ability to fight or flee when faced with danger. Chemicals including cortisol and adrenaline help kickstart the body, pushing blood towards the major muscles that give you strength. Okay? But the exact same stress response kicks in when you imagine danger. Just imagining it, okay, can kick in those same responses. Also producing cortisol and adrenaline and pushing blood around the body. The same chemistry is produced regardless of whether the danger is real or imagined. Okay, let me back up 1 second. Oh, actually, let me keep moving. What does all this mean in real life? It means that what you imagine to be happening is actually happening as far as your brain is concerned. When we talk about mind over matter, we're not just throwing words out there. This is some documentation on what exactly we mean by that when we make that statement. To continue, it says, even if you imagine eating, the brain thinks you're eating, and there's evidence to suggest that it turns on the I'm full signal afterwards. So the lesson to be taught in that particular article is simply your mind cannot tell the difference between real and imagined. And by you being able to visualize what you're going to do, you have taken control of your life and you have made things real. It can act in the opposite way, but we're talking about positive meditation. Okay? It says you can even use visualization to give you extra confidence. You can imagine yourself in a situation where you would usually be lacking, but you see yourself acting with confidence, conveying the body language of confidence. Now, this was written October 31st, 2014, like I said, by Dr. David Hamilton, PhD. Check his website out for that particular information. But we're not done there. We're not going to stop there because it's not fair, even if you got 90 hair. Now listen to this. Meditation and memory now. In one study, researchers at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston showed that regular meditation causes the brain's cerebral cortex to thicken. By the way, the cerebral cortex is the jet pillar. It's your spinal column. And the top of the jet pillar is your cerebral cortex, which then goes on and leads into the brain. But let's continue. The brain's outer cortex is responsible for the higher mental functions such as concentration, learning, and memory. So this is an amazing discovery. I suppose longtime fans of meditation are thinking, I told you so right now. I told you so, family. But let's continue. Oh, by the way, this article is from memoryimprovementtips.com. Memoryimprovementtips.com. And it doesn't have a date on this one either. But as soon as I come across the date, I'll let the family know. It doesn't even show me who the author was of this piece of information. But we'll come back to that when we find it. Anyway. Cortical thickening occurs through regular meditation. A study by the University of Washington put it to the test. Participants were put in high-stress multitasking situations where they were required to repeatedly answer the phone, check email, update calendars, and send text messages. Those who regularly practice meditation far outperformed the others in their ability to focus and stay on task. I find these discoveries about the link between meditation, memory, and attention exciting. It's becoming clear that transformation, which makes your brain more focused and powerful, really is possible. So right there you have hardcore evidence on how your memory can be increased through meditation. So I'm going to put that one down and let's bring this one up. And this is entitled, Just Breathe. Body has a built-in stress reliever. Okay. Written by Gretchen Kuda, and it is from December 6, 2010. Okay. I'll give you a couple of lines off of this. This is about the breath we discussed earlier. There are plenty of ways to relieve stress. Exercise, a long soak in a hot bath, or even a massage. But believe it or not, something you are doing right now, probably without even thinking about it, is a proven stress reliever. Breathing. You can influence asthma. You can influence chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. You can influence heart failure. There are studies that show that people who practice breathing exercises and have those conditions, they benefit. Okay. We're just going on to show people that we can increase memory, that reality is not real, it's actually what you make it, and that breath is a natural stress reliever. All things that can be done through meditation. Research has shown that breathing exercises like these can have immediate effects by altering the pH of the blood or changing blood pressure. Okay, we're talking about hypotension. We're talking about heart disease, heart failure, changing all that just through the proper breathing. Okay, changing your genes in essence. So just a little piece there. Like I said, I'm not going to harp on any one too much, but I want to let you know, I'll give you a well-rounded perspective of what meditation can do. And lastly, attention and focus. And this one is by PhD Joshua Gowen, and it's from Psychology Today. The title is Brain Scans Show How Meditation Improves Mental Focus. And it goes a little something like this. Hit it! People who regularly practice meditation may improve their mental focus by altering brain function. Compared to non-meditators, they may be better equipped to quiet brain activity related to mind wandering. So what does this mean? Sometimes we think about something and we're putting things together, and then something comes out of the blue and takes our train of thought somewhere else. It happens to me all the time. We call it a bird walk or loose associations. But what we found here is that meditation decreases your mind wandering, which increases your focus. But I don't want to blow it all out the water yet. Let's keep going. Compared to non-meditators, meditators had more stability in their ventral post-medial cortex. The VPMC, a region linked to spontaneous thoughts and mind wandering, lies on the underside of the brain in the middle of your head. I'm assuming that's near the pineal gland, and that's why you stimulate that part of your brain with the tongue to the roof of your mouth when you meditate, because you want to pump the pineal gland and pump some DMT, the spirit molecule, throughout the body, allowing you to reach higher states of consciousness. It goes on to say, while both meditators and non-meditators had some activity in their PMC, the increased stability in meditators may mean that they can better rein in wild thoughts so they don't snowball out of control. Increased VPMC stability may curb mind wandering. So there you have it. I'm not going to go any further into any more of this information because, as you can see, it can get pretty lengthy. But the point of the matter is, sit down, turn everything off, go out into nature, start to breathe deeply, close your eyes, imagine you doing the things that you want to do, and you will be surprised at the results you receive. 5 minutes a day, 5 days out of the week, not even 7. Just start there. And you'll see how much you've improved in all those areas, how much better you feel in your mind, your body, and spirit. Because slowly and surely, as we just read, your jet pillar is being erected.
Those interrelated events, they make up the cosmicness. Everything is everything. When you see it, it's gonna be hard to miss. Those interrelated events. Everything is everything. Hard to miss.
And because this is such a cosmic episode in the first place, I'm going to segue right into the cosmicness, because I think the family will find this relationship interesting. So I'm called into a class to do a guided meditation. I come in with the articles we just dropped on. I come ready with my guided meditation. I'm standing in front of the class, introducing myself, and we're getting ready to go under, go in, go deep. And I look right in front of me. On the table is sitting a book. It's their reading book. The class was called Read 180, or for students who are struggling readers. So I'm going to talk to them about understanding the history of psychology and meditation and how that relates to root words and Greco-Roman era, things as psyche and ology, and how you put them together to get psychology. It means the study of the mind or the individual, and how psyche used to be Sahu, which is a spiritual body in ancient Africa, and all this stuff, okay? Then later on, psyche became a Greek deity, which later on became what you know today as psychology or your psyche. So as I'm going through all this information, I look down and I see this book. And the book is on, of all places, chapter 7. Okay, that was the first part about it. Then I read down further and I say, wait a minute. This chapter is on Greco-Roman prefixes and suffixes. So I stop in the middle because I'm hitting that part as I'm looking at this book. And I asked the teacher, because I think maybe it's just a coincidence, even though I know that they don't exist. What are you guys studying next? And she goes, oh, we're going to study Greco-Latin roots. And I'm glad you brought it up right now. So I asked her, do you realize that this book that I'm talking about that was not planned out is sitting right here in front of me on that particular thing? And I'm talking about it right now. She said, yeah. And I'm like, do you realize this is also chapter 7? She said, yeah. And I stopped there because I realized that not everybody is into the science as I am. But to my surprise, she came up to me afterwards and told me that she actually studies meditation with a doctor outside of school. Wow. Mind blown. Bam. Whoop. Whop. Talking about words of power. Talking about cosmicness. There was no accident that we came across each other. No accident that the page was right there as I'm talking about it. No accident that meditation led me to all of this. So when we talk about cosmicness, we talk about no such thing as a coincidence. That story right there, people, is exactly what I'm referring to. And now, I've been waiting to introduce this man for the entire episode. Mr. Ray Wilson, author, historian, lecturer, life coach, neuro-linguistic programmer, all rolled into one. A fantastic interview. It was real fun. Me and Ray chopped it up for quite some time on a number of different topics, from changing the brain programming through the power of words and how that relates to magic and word power, to changing who you are through those powers. We talked about how he's resurrecting communities through his use of African-centered coloring books, which allows you to absorb information not just by reading it, but also through the tactile and the kinetic senses of actually coloring it. So we get real deep into a lot of excellent information. We have his contact information too, so in case anybody wants to get any of his products or access his services. But sit back, listen, enjoy the ride, enjoy the show, and share the info with those you know. So welcome, family. This is Baba Kintu at the Djedi Learning Show. Today's guest is Ray Wilson. He has lots of stuff going on. He's a certified high performance coach, one of 200 in the world. So very rare skill set that you'll get a taste of today. Certified transformation and leadership coach, certified Neuro-Linguistic program practitioner, one of the largest NGOs and the internal auditor and a consultant in the United States. He's also a speaker and author, so he has multi-talents, and you can reach his stuff at joinraywilson.com. He has projects ranging from Kelsey's coloring book, which is an African-centered history coloring book, different projects he has coming down the road, and he'll get into all the information. But without any further ado, how you doing today, Brother Ray?
I am doing fantastic.
That is great to hear. Great to hear. So, I did the introduction. Hopefully that was sufficient for you. And, we want to ask you basically how you got into all this information that you got into. Neuro-linguistic programming to writing the books and African history coloring books. What is Brother Ray Wilson about?
Okay. Well, I'll start off with the personal development side, and then I'll zero in on how I got into the Kelsey's lessons on African history book, because I think that was going to be the main focus for today.
Perfect.
And it all just kind of happened. I didn't realize this until one day I was being interviewed for a book, to be placed in a book, and the gentleman asked me, how did I get into personal development? And I remembered when I was 8 years old, I don't even know what the situation was or not, but I knew, I remember saying to myself, I need to do something. I know I need to do something in life. I need help, but I don't know what to do. I need somebody to help me. And I said to myself, when I grow up, I'm going to help people improve the quality of their life. And I literally had forgot about that until last year when this guy was interviewing me for the book.
Until last year?
So, yeah.
Oh,
I had
wow.
literally forgot that. And that was like I was 8 years old.
That was one of those deep-seated memories.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So, I guess as I was growing up, I grew up in poor neighborhoods. I didn't have much guidance. I grew up around a lot of criminals and not so good people, a lot of negative people. So,
yeah.
But I was always kind of like a leader and stuff. So, but I did have my dad, even though I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad was always in my life. At the time, I was basically living in San Diego, and he lived in Los Angeles.
Okay. Extremely important.
Yeah. But he gave me, it's interesting. Okay, this is interesting. So he gave me a personal development book when I was probably like around 12 years old. And I threw the book in the closet.
Like kids do.
I threw the book in the closet, but I think about 13 years old, I was 13 years, I went to an amusement park, and there was a hypnotist there. And the hypnotist was hypnotizing people, and he hypnotized one of my best friends. And, we couldn't believe, like what our friend did.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of impressive. And then later that year, I was in high school, and that same hypnotist came to our school.
Huh.
And he hypnotized the basketball team.
He hypnotized the basketball team.
So,
well, I have to ask you a question really quick before you continue. Did you hear about the principal who hypnotized over like 300 students over a period of 4 or 5 years? And recently, about 2 or 3 of them had committed suicide or something, and he got removed from the school district. It was just a story not too long ago.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about that story.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, it was just crazy how it happened. It wasn't directly related, but they try to blame it on him. But that's just interesting. You say he hypnotized the whole basketball team. So, I'm gonna listen.
Yeah. So and they played very well. And so
Wow.
then I was like, wow, the mind is a really powerful thing. So I went back and pulled out that personal development book out the closet. And I started reading that book. And at the same time, about the same time, I used to go out and party every Saturday, party hard.
Okay, that's
Come
right.
home. I'd come home, TV on, fall asleep. But every morning, I would hear Norman Vincent Peale. No, it wasn't Norman Vincent Peale. It was Robert Schuller, The Hour of Power.
Okay.
Even before they built that church. So he was always talking about the power of the mind. But I was kind of like half asleep and just kind of listening to it. But he kept talking about the power of the mind. So one day I opened up my eyes. I began to watch it. And then I started ordering his books, which were really personal development books.
Okay.
And so I started ordering those books. I read the book my dad gave me. And I started just reading personal development books. Now, at the time, I was like really a troubled teen and always in trouble. But one day, I was probably about 20. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person I was because just reading those books, I didn't realize I was changing. And so I started changing.
Just before your very eyes.
Right before my very eyes. And so I've done some things that I didn't think I would do in life because I didn't really have much hope in life at the time. But I started making these transitions. I started doing big things. I quit the security of the job I had, decided to go. I finished college, so I moved to LA. So I quit a job, had no support, just a dream. I finished school, went and worked for one of the largest government organizations in the United States, as you mentioned, served as an internal auditor, helping organizations solve problems, improve performance, and achieve success. And at the same time, I didn't really realize it.
So the government is using the power of the mind as well. They're tapping into this information as well.
Actually, that's the interesting thing. They're not. They're not. And that's what I realized that they would succeed a lot quicker if they did do that. And that's why I kind of got into my own personal development and coaching individuals on success. Because the government does not focus on mindset. They just focus on performance statistics,
results.
Outcomes.
Yeah.
You can actually train a person to improve, but if you do not change their mindset, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But when you focus on their mindset, things will happen at an accelerated rate.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get up to this coloring book. So
we got time.
So, yeah. So like I said, I was a troubled youth, but then I started changing, and so I wanted to make some positive changes in my life, and so I started. I became a Christian at the time. That was the most positive thing that I knew of at the time. And the thing about me, anything I do is once I do it, I'm pretty intense in it. So I was a student of the Bible. I read it several times from cover to cover, which most people in the church do not.
Especially in the African community.
Yeah, I confirmed that with preachers, and they, So, but the thing that happened to me is one day I was reading. So here we go. So one day I was reading the Bible. I don't know what happened. I had read this passage many times, but then I said, wait a minute. They say everything started in the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden is in Africa.
Yes.
And I said to myself, then why do we study Hebrew and Greek?
Good question.
Then immediately came after me, I said, black people are despised all over the world. There must be something special about us. And I became obsessed with answering just those two questions. Why did we study Hebrew and Greek if everything began in Africa? And so I started asking preachers and leaders in churches, and nobody had the answer, or they didn't want to give me the answer. And then, weird little voice said something in my head. A little voice said, go home and you will find the answer. And I knew when that voice said go home, I knew it meant go home to Africa.
To the continent.
So now, I had never even thought about going to Africa. So now I'm thinking, okay,
Wow.
I had this wild idea that I was going to go to Africa. I was going to go in the bush, find me a priest, sit on a rock, and have them explain to me about civilization and life and things like that. That was my idea. I had no idea how I was going to do this. That was just my plan.
Well, it doesn't sound like a bad one to me.
Yeah. So then later on, I was exposed to Ashwar Kwesi.
Uh-oh. Mind blown.
And, yeah, so I heard him on the radio lecturing about, I think he was lecturing about Africa, and so I went to one of his presentations, and he said, tonight, your African consciousness is going to battle with your Christian consciousness.
Wow. And that's an intense battle.
Yeah. And so after his lecture, thought about it, I was like, okay, so this is my trip to go back home. So I went to Egypt.
Oh, wow. Can't
So
wait to go.
I went to Egypt, and interesting, a lot of things that I had read about in the Bible, I saw physical images there.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
that was very interesting. And so, of course, I got intense into my study.
Okay.
And then I ended up going to, I think the next year, I ended up going to Ghana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So what type of things when you were in Egypt did you see that you would have saw in the Bible? Any particular stories?
Brother Kwesi is very good about is showing you images. So, for instance, they talk about Solomon's temple, and they have a picture, a drawn picture, but not a picture. I can't remember what temple we were at.
Yeah.
So he showed us the picture, and there was the actual building, the actual temple, but it was in Africa. But in the Bible, It was drawn, but I'm looking at a physical structure.
Monument. Yes, absolutely. Wow, okay.
So that was one thing. Of course, you go to every temple, and they have the holies of the holies.
Okay.
Wow.
I pet, I soot.
Yeah. And then, of course, I saw cherubims there. All these things that I had read about, like there were only one place, I actually saw them physically.
Wow.
So obviously that changed my focus, and and I began to study even more.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I went to Ghana, and that was a whole different history. So
I was about to say, you went from the highest of civilization to where the slave ships are in the castles to the lowest part of civilization for black people.
yeah,
You know? Wow. What was that like?
it was, well, you know, the interesting thing I felt really good about, I didn't really realize it. So I saw the door of no return, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I walked
Explain
through
what
it.
that is for the people who may not know what the door of no return is.
Okay, so the door of no return is when they captured various Africans and enslaved them, and they took them first and they put them in a slave dungeon for, I think, months, even years before they transported them to the Americas, to the Caribbean, to be enslaved. And the door of no return is the door that they walked out of as they put them on the ships that transported them to America.
Okay.
And it's called the door of no return because
He wasn't coming back.
They never returned.
Yeah. I still haven't been back.
Yeah. So what I did, I didn't really, it just dawned on me when I was walking through the door of no return. Then I walked backwards, representing bringing all my ancestors that were taken across the ocean back home.
That's right. That's right.
So that's what I did.
Powerful symbology right there.
The interesting thing, I went with a group. So when you go into those dungeons and you still smell death, even when you're walking towards, they call it a castle. I don't call it a castle, but
I don't either.
Even though when you're walking towards it, I mean, like half a mile away, you're just smelling death. I understand now they've now renovated everything and they've kind of painted everything and made it look more acceptable and digestible, and the stench is not as bad. But when I was there,
horrible, and
there were, I mean, you could smell death. You could see the blood on the ground. I've seen some of the hardest core people I knew break down in those dungeons.
Yeah,
because you could feel the spirit.
Absolutely, it's still there.
Yeah. So you could feel the spirit. So for me, I just sat on top of the castle and just stared at the ocean, I don't know, for an hour. Just,
wow.
So.
It's powerful.
So,
and so that motivated you, obviously.
Yeah, it definitely did. And one of the things, Brother Quasi, I've studied, the legendary historians, John Henry Clark, Chancellor Williams.
Yes.
I studied them, and then I had the opportunity to actually sit at the feet of, locally, Dr. Kwaku Person Lynn, who used to do a Friday night training on various African cultures around the world.
Wow.
And one of the things that Brother Quasi tasked us with, as well as Dr. Kwaku, is that you have this knowledge and you have to do something with it.
That's very true.
And one of the things I was told that Africans were good at taking complex situations and simplifying them.
Make it plain, as Malcolm would say.
Pardon me?
I said, make it plain, as Malcolm would say.
Yes. And so when I went to Egypt and when I went to Ghana, my son was probably about 5 years old. And I wanted to be able to share my experiences with him, but I wanted it to be digestible for him.
Yeah.
Thus came the idea of Kelsey's Lessons on Africa.
Okay.
So I had this idea that I would create a coloring book and I would put it in the format of ABCs, so that he could remember it, so that The reason I did it as a coloring book, so he could read it, he could touch it, and he was involved in it in some way while he's coloring. So
made it multimodal.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's how we came up with Kelsey's lessons on Africa.
Now, what countries are featured in this coloring book?
Okay, so I've got volume 1, volume 2. And those are just generally covering all of Africa. So they're just everywhere.
Okay.
So it's formatted in the ABCs. Each letter represents a person, place, or thing
I see.
related to Africa, and then there's a brief narrative.
Okay.
So, obviously, in Volume 1, we start off with A as Africa, and we explain it as a continent and the mother of civilization. Interesting to know that a lot of people don't realize that Africa is not a continent and not a country.
That's absolutely true. Happens all the time.
And so it goes all over the place, for instance, and then the letter H, we have Hatshepsut, a queen,
beautiful.
a king, and a pharaoh,
That's
all
right.
at the same time during the 18th dynasty.
That's right, Queen Hatshepsut.
So that's kind of how the book is laid out. Let's see.
And what age group can they start utilizing the book?
Well, I say 5 to 7.
Okay. Okay. So basically, if you have like a kindergarten school, or a school that contains kindergarten through maybe 2nd or 3rd grade, this will be perfect for those age groups.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but here's the interesting thing. Good thing you asked me that, because, a lot of people have come to me who have bought the book who are adults. They use their children. They told me, I used my child to buy the book. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know this stuff.
Wow. Now that's the
So
powerful
a lot of
part.
adults bought the book for themselves. So, and one of the reasons I did it in this format too, because I know that children are very inquisitive.
Yeah.
And in order for an adult to interact with them, they're going to have to study.
Wow. And what's funny about that is there's scientific evidence that demonstrates that if you learn with the child, it can also enhance their inquisitiveness. So you don't have to be a master at everything and know every single thing to teach somebody. Just the fact that you show them how to get through the problems, as in the scenario you just broke down, that's a win-win for both.
Right, and that was my motive too. First of all, so this ties into my whole thing about being a high performance coach and a certified transformational leadership. Because
get into some of that too.
Yeah, I'm into personal development, and so to me, a lot of African people say, "Well, I go to a lot of personal development functions, and I don't see us there." And a lot of people tell me, "Well, we're not into personal development." Well, we were the creators of personal development.
Excellent.
It's called the rites of passage. That was your first personal development.
Wow. And what is a rites of passage?
The rites of passage is teaching you in your various categories, your responsibilities to the community, your purpose in life, and educating you. So, children were observed to see what their talents and skills were and how they could contribute to the community, and then they were taught specifically how to do that. You got to a certain age, you were taught to be a man and also to be a woman, how to be contribute as a provider, a protector, as a man, as a warrior, as a woman to how to support, and of course, women are our first teachers. So,
Absolutely.
At a certain age, you were taught how to properly be an elder and how to, use your wisdom. So, you were constantly being trained on how to improve in your life.
That's funny that you say that, because we just made a post on our Facebook page today, or actually all our social media, and it was a quote from Malcolm that said, the mama is the first teacher. What you teach that child is going to teach to the world.
Correct.
Wow.
That is correct.
It's powerful. Okay, so you said that you got into a lot of do you consider it self-development or self-help, or do you go by another term when you address that type of information?
I use personal development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because some people can call it hermeticism. Other people can call it gnosis. There's so many terms for the ancient knowledge that, like you said, it's all about enlightening an individual. The Pert Imheru, going into the light. So, I'm just wondering what you refer to it as.
Yeah, I because I study like a lot of the latest research, but I always try to trace it back to the African origin.
Wow.
Because NLP is really, in a sense, hypnosis.
Ooh, explain that to us.
Well, the words that we use can direct our mind and our actions. And if you purposefully know what you're doing, you can use it for positive things and to give you confidence, to give you direction, to achieve whatever your goals are.
Absolutely.
And, we're conditioned, actually we're hypnotized all the time, but we're negatively hypnotized from our first, we talked about your mother being your first teacher. So your parents, your family, they can condition you to be a positive person, to be a negative person. And then, you're conditioned to act a certain way in your community, in school. And then, of course, you got media, television, and stuff like that a lot of times are not portraying, especially for African descendants, are not portraying you in the most positive ways.
Yeah.
And you can buy into that subconsciously.
Absolutely.
And that's a form of hypnosis.
That's a good point. You know what? It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you've seen this movie yet, but Get Out, where the whole theme of the movie was a family putting black people under hypnosis in order to harvest their organs and to keep them as various form of slaves in modern times.
Yeah, a friend of mine just told me about that. I haven't actually seen the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But, media uses hypnosis all the time. But the point I was going to bring, it's interesting. I was shocked. One of the people who taught me this, he was giving a lecture to a large European audience. And
wow,
he told them, I was actually shocked.
Floored.
That, the original teacher was Imhotep.
Oh, wow, yeah. Well, there you go. Multi-genius.
But see, of course, they didn't. I was shocked that he would say it in that company. And, of course, they didn't know Imhotep was African, but Imhotep is in my book.
Oh, excellent, excellent.
Yeah. And then he actually showed the image.
Oh, wow. And what did they do?
It was quiet.
You got to hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But he didn't know. It was funny because he didn't know that I knew what I knew, too. So I even had to educate him more on Imhotep. So.
Wow. Well, I guess it's funny, when they find out that a lot of the doctors have taken that Hippocratic oath where Aesculapius is referred to in there, and Aesculapius is Imhotep. Very interesting. So yeah. So yeah, you're talking about the some of the African origins and the hypnosis, and some of the ways. How can we use it for beneficial ways? Or what are some ways that you train people to use it for beneficial means?
One of the things is, so when I'm working with people, I'm listening to their language, because you're actually, hypnotizing yourself a lot of times. And the language you use, am I listening to limitations or am I listening to possibilities? And so I help them change their language so that even when they're speaking, because even when they're speaking out, they're actually speaking to themselves.
That's
and so
a good
they're
point.
actually programming themselves and their actions. Obviously, I do use hypnosis if that's one of the routes they want to go.
Yeah.
And then, like with our, my different coaching disciplines, we have tools, techniques. Like with high performance, that's a whole nother, that's a curriculum of taking you from wherever you are to the next level.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
we deal with your psychology, your physiology, your productivity,
Oh wow.
your
So it's
persuasion, and
it's a holistic approach.
yeah.
Wow.
So there's a lot of tools and techniques that I have that I utilize and that I teach you to utilize to take you to the next level. And so, and what we found is a lot of these concepts, well, they're used by multimillionaires, high performing CEOs, business owners, artists, athletes. So these are actual research and studies that have been done, that have been academically validated, that have been proven, that have been tracked with the people that we work for. So it's kind of like the high performance is the highest level of coaching that there is.
Oh wow.
In the world, because most of the coaching has never been tested or validated, but this has been. And you would be surprised. I don't even want to start name dropping who utilizes this coaching, but a lot of your famous people. Yeah.
Huh. People that we probably wouldn't even suspect.
Yeah, but I think you're going to be hearing a lot about it a lot this year.
Really?
Yeah. There's going to, I can't reveal a lot, but there's going to be a media blast on high performance. And then I think you will know who's been utilizing it for the benefit, Yeah.
So, now, how does that, does it have any, techniques from behavior analysis? I know behavior analysis uses a form of coaching as well. And I didn't know, if that's one of the forms of psychology that it borrows from in order to, come with a holistic approach.
Well, when you talk about behavior analysis, I think I use that more in my transformation and leadership coaching.
Okay.
With the high performance, because it's already like a built-in curriculum, we do look at your behavior, but we're trying to more so get you from where you are to the. We're not trying. We are getting you from where you are to the next level. So we don't go back into your childhood and this is why you do this and that, because that doesn't matter anymore. Yeah.
It sounds like it has the same effects as ibogaine. I don't know if you ever heard of the use of ibogaine to get rid of traumatic experiences, but sounds like if you have a little high performance coaching, you don't have to travel all the way to Gabon in Africa and find the ancient priest to get the ibogaine. Get it right here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just had an opportunity. I think 2 weeks ago, I was at the Black Writers on Tour. So we gave a presentation on high performance just to give the audience a little taste of it. and showing them, one of the things we tell them you have to focus on, you have to make sure that you're true to your, are you living your truth? But most people don't know what their truth is. So
You said
I
your
gave them a little
truths or your
technique
truth?
to help them to identify their truths. So to make sure that they're congruent with their truths.
Oh, their truths, like their truth plural.
Yeah.
I see. The truth.
More like, I guess some people would say your purpose.
I see.
Who you're supposed to be.
Huh. Now, do you also use the words in the neuro-linguistic programming in conjunction? Or like you said, is it just a strict curriculum that you have to follow a certain way?
No, especially when I'm dealing with someone one-on-one, because I'm listening to their words. So I may use neuro-linguistic wording to help move them along quicker, to accelerate change, and teach them how to utilize it as well. And help them become aware of the wording that they may be using that is not serving them.
Okay, I see what you mean. Wow. It's fascinating.
So I combine them both. But when I'm doing the high performance coaching, I do have to follow their curriculum.
I see what you mean.
But I combine the both of them. So
what I also find very, very interesting about all of this is that in speaking about word power and how words can change reality, the ancient word for magic in ancient Kemet, or Egypt as we call it today, it was hekau, which literally meant words of power. So when we talk about the different techniques to use the words to change the mindset and those neural pathways, it's interesting. That's the most ancient form of magic that we have, in the truest sense of the word.
You are correct.
Very, very interesting. Well, you also had some other stuff coming up that I thought was fascinating. Comic books and superheroes. Tell us a little bit about some of the projects you got coming up.
Yeah, I'm working both on the, one of the things I did want to back up is with the children's book, when I talked about personal development, because people may say, well, this is not personal development. But indeed it is, because one of the things I wanted them to do is to see their own images and the great accomplishments that their ancestors made and the contributions that they made to the world. And in seeing that, to motivate them to know that they can do great things as well, and to inspire them to do great things. So that was one of the purposes of those books, and to serve in the area of personal development. So in essence, it's like one of their first personal development books in their lives.
A coloring book.
Yeah.
So they can have a personal development. They can begin to develop past the level where they are at the ages of 5 through 7. So it's not something that we have to wait, years for. You could start that now with the tools that we have that Brother Wade put together. This is excellent.
Yeah, and one of the motivations for me was I got tired of going to Black History celebrations, and the majority of the time, most of the events I went to they focused on slavery.
I hear you.
And so I'm like, we're much more than that. And so I felt it was my duty to expose that, as well as one of the things that I started seeing too, as well, that motivated me is a lot of times when I go to African-centered conferences and stuff, I don't see anything for the children.
Interesting.
Most of the attendees are usually 40 years or older.
Yeah.
And and then they bring the children, but there's nothing for them to
gravitate towards, huh?
Correct.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point. That's a very good point. I think we're both in the same mind frame in that sense, because it seems like we both have a focus in the area of not only personal development but child development specifically, because I think Whitney Houston said it best when I believe the children are our future. I don't, for me, it's hard for me to separate them from any of the equations. I know some people say, forget the children altogether. We need to worry about the adults and get them together. Well, you could do that, and you could spend a lot of time and effort, but I think you get a lot more bang for your buck if you deal with the children. But that's me.
Well, yeah. I think we need to deal with everybody. But, but being aware that negative images are placed before them all the time, and to have something to counter that is great, and to give them a start where they know their greatness from the very beginning, to me is awesome. So
I agree.
So that was my contribution from a personal development standpoint. So some of the projects that I'm working on in the area of, let me start with, actually I'm trying to finish this book. I'm not trying, I am finishing the book.
That's right.
Overcoming Your Obstacles to Success, 5 Steps to Rapid Results.
Wow.
So
and what type of material is in there?
Pardon me?
What type of material do you cover in that book?
So in that book, I use transformational concepts, mindset concepts. I take you through a 5-step process, because any obstacle or anything you're doing, first of all, you need to analyze. We talked about your thoughts. You need to analyze your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors. And I give you the tools to do that. And then the next thing is, once you analyze it, you need to uncover your limiting beliefs, your behaviors, your systems and strategies that you use to navigate through life. And once you identify that, you need to develop an intervention plan. And developing that intervention plan, you need to have the proper tools to help you overcome any obstacles. And so I give you a lot of tools that you can utilize. And then the next step is to implement that intervention plan. So I teach you how to activate those things. Like, for instance, I was working with a professional financial advisor, a young brother, very good at what he did, but he was challenged with presenting to people who were older than him. So I taught him some transformational tools to develop instant confidence. So I taught him a technique to do that.
Wow.
He didn't double his sales, he quadrupled his sales.
Oh my goodness. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So I teach concepts like that. And then lastly, we teach you how to develop triggers. And that's one of the things I taught him, like how to develop triggers for instant confidence and boundaries, so that you can navigate through those obstacles to reach your outcome. So that.
Wow. What would be an example of like a trigger?
Pardon me?
What would be an example of like a trigger?
A trigger is something that happens to cause you to act a certain way. So there are manual triggers. A trigger could be a manual trigger could be as simple as you want to think positive every time you walk into the conference room. A manual trigger could be as simple as a post-it over the door that says think positive as you walk in the door, to remind you to be positive. But there are subconscious triggers where I can bring up all the confidence you ever had. So there are certain things we install into you so that you can bring up all the confidence you ever had at that moment when you need it.
Wow, it's kind of like software.
Yeah.
Just run it
Pretty
when
much.
you need it.
You hit it right on the head. Yeah. It's programming.
Wow.
Subconscious programming.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's excellent. So you said you have the manual form, and now is there another form of trigger?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So there are, and that would be a little while to share with you actually how to do it. But that's what I teach you, how to do subconscious triggers to automatically, like, you just don't feel confident, but there are certain triggers that I teach you how to do that you can subconsciously activate. Like I said, all of that confidence that you've had an experience in the past.
Wow.
And boom, and you activate it in that situation. And so that's what we did with the young man. So, we installed some triggers in so he subconsciously knew what to do, and automatically he was very confident with whoever he was presenting to.
It's almost like he shape-shifted. You gave him the power to be able to literally become something else for a moment or however long he needed in order to accomplish a task.
Yeah. Well, actually he had everything he needed. He just didn't know how to activate it. And sometimes that's what's happened to it. A lot of times we have everything we need, but we've been conditioned to believe that we don't.
Excellent point. So, wow.
So that's one of the big things that's coming out this year. And I'm continuing on the Kelsey's lessons on Africa. I'm continuing on those. We have right now I have volume 1 and volume 2. We have volume 3 and 4 in process, where we're going to start focusing on specific countries in Africa instead of, we just wanted to give everybody an introduction first. And now we're going to focus the next volume 3 will be on Egypt. Volume 4 will be on Ghana. And now since I did an African ancestry and found out my origins are from Nigeria, so now we're going to do one, obviously, on Nigeria. And then we're going to spin off from the history to actual stories, but they will be kind of like formatted into personal development, again, to develop the self-esteem of our children. But they will be based upon African icons and places and concepts and traditions.
Wow. This is, extremely powerful information. For those of us, who might have just joined us, we're talking to Brother Ray Wilson, who specializes in a number of different areas, from neuro-linguistic programming to transformational coaching, to speaking, public speaking, to author, to writing. And we're talking about his books, Kelsey's Lessons on Africa, and the various volumes that he has out in which the children can color, but at the same time get the knowledge of self that they need to transform to the highest level of an individual that they can be, as well as a better contributor to society as a whole. So we don't need to look anywhere else when we have tools like this out there. So we definitely want to get your information out there. It sounds like joinraywilson.com is the best way to get a hold of you. Is that correct, Brother Ray?
That is correct. Right now, we used to have a website specifically for lessons on Africa, but we got to traveling a lot, and we missed out on renewing it. So I'm going to put up another website. Oh, we also have I forgot that. We have a Facebook, Lessons on Africa.
Oh, excellent. What's your Facebook?
I believe it's, I think it's, I believe it's Lessons on Africa.
Lessons on Africa on Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if people just go ahead and search Lessons on Africa on Facebook, you should be able to come across it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I'll search it, and when I find it, I'll put it in the show notes so people can look through the show notes and link to it.
And what we're going to start doing is giving little mini lessons, minute lessons based up on the book. And we're going to encourage the young people to ask questions or share, even share the pictures they colored, anything that they've learned. Because that's one of the things we want the parents to encourage once they're kind of introduced to the different information, to do some research. It can be excellent for book reports and things like that. So we're doing that. And then one of the things that we're going to do that's going to be very exciting, and this is for children and adults, we're going to create a comic book of superheroes based on African icons.
Oh, wow. You got to tell me more about this. Is there anything that you can tell us without leaking too much secrets?
I really can't.
Ah, man.
but they are going to be, they're going to be based upon icons such as Imhotep. And,
Okay.
So, you know.
Right. You get a little taste. Yeah. Okay. Well,
it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be exclusive.
I forgot. And the books, we're going to start putting them in apps, too, as well.
Oh. So you're going to put an app together to go along with the Kelsey's coloring book?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. And that information they can probably get from your website as well, correct?
That, it's interesting because that website wasn't built for the Kelsey's Lessons on Africa.
Okay.
But I guess because we have the platform where we want to put some online training on, but we haven't put it up yet.
Okay.
But until then, I guess, so that's how they can contact me, and I guess I'll put up information to lead them there.
Excellent. Now, do you have an email address that people can reach you if they have questions or want to contact you?
Sure. They can reach, for this, they can reach me at wwilson150@gmail.com.
wwilson150@gmail.com?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, Brother Ray, that was a ton of information. We're going to link to all the stuff that we discussed today in the show notes, the self-development, the neuro-linguistic programming, the African-centered educational materials. It was a great chat. Thank you for coming on to the Djedi Learning Show, and we hope to have you back soon. Was there anything else you wanted to close with or let the people know before we wrapped it up?
Well, first of all, let me say I appreciate having the opportunity to share with your audience
no problem.
things that I'm doing, and hopefully people will take advantage of it. I know we really wanted to focus on the lessons, Kelsey's Lessons on Africa, like I was saying, that is their first personal development book, and I want to encourage us to work with our children to give them the tools that they need to live the best life that they possibly can. And if I can be of assistance, I whether it's for the adults or for the children, I do speaking engagements. So I'm happy to come out and share with any group information, whether it's high performance coaching, transformational coaching, or just talk about the book.
Excellent.
The Lessons on Africa.
Wow, perfect. Well, thanks again, Ray. Like I said, hope to speak to you again in the very near future, and good luck with everything in the future. Okay,
I appreciate that, and I do look forward to talking to you again.
Excellent. Okay, brother, we'll talk to you soon.
Alrighty.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, family. Another amazing interview with a super interesting man. A father, a teacher, lecturer. Like I said, neuro-linguistic programmer. All those things rolled up into one. We need to raise the bar on the knowledge that we're putting out to the people, and we need to make sure people can access it. And having that man on the show was a blessing in disguise, because he allowed people to access some information that they never would have thought of if he hadn't come on. So thank you, Brother Ray, for coming on and sharing that information with us. Had a lot of fun. Had tons of fun. So if you liked the information that you got today, make sure you support us. This is your home media. You have to trust us more than the fake news that you see going on and distracting you from the things that you really need to be doing, such as the stuff that we laid down today. So if you do like it, make sure you go to the website to sign up for any monthly information that we have going out. You can make a one-time donation. You can access the products that we have up there. And you can do other ways of support, such as just write a review like Brother Enoch did. Definitely give you another shout out, Brother Enoch Hankerson. Spread it by word of mouth. Okay, you can share some posts. You can help us with a jingle. We need some jingles for quite a few of our segments. You can blog for us. We need articles to go out, and I can't write all the articles because the information is just coming so rapidly. And make sure we get some of that art. I know some of you guys are fantastic with putting stuff together. We need some of your expertise. And anything else you can think of. If you like the show, please go ahead and support it, because we want to support you just like the pillars that we are supporting the sky, which is you. So we have come to that point again. It has been an excellent show. My mind is open. My eyes are open. My jet pillar is erected. I'm able to step forward with my left foot into tomorrow. Because you got to think twice. So come back. Take another listen to the Jedi Learning Show when you get a chance. We won't be far. We hope you love this episode as much as we loved you. Take care. Be safe. And we'll see you again soon. Ashe.